Cheated speedruns are seemingly inevitable for every game. Whether it's Minecraft, SM64, or an indie game most people have never heard of, there will always be players who try to cheat their way to the top of the leaderboards. And while normally you would assume it's inexperienced runners who would resort to cheating to get fast times, surprisingly, it's often the complete opposite. And that's no different for Grand Theft Auto. Over the years, many top runners have been exposed for cheating, whether it be through splicing, using a task, or editing the game files, and a few of these runners were once thought to be the greatest runners these games had ever seen before throwing it all away. So today, we will take a look at some world record holders in GTA's history who were eventually exposed for cheating and banned from running these games ever again. In 2017, Anti was the most influential name in the speedrun community for the older GTA games like GTA 3, GTA San Andreas, and GTA Vice City. He was actually quite a respectable speedrunner overall, running multiple other franchises as well like Super Mario. But in late 2017, he began getting really good at GTA speedrunning. In just a short few months, he managed to secure the world record in every main category for Vice City. He live streamed all of his runs, and his stream would pull in hundreds of viewers who were just waiting for him to break another record. His dominance was nothing the community had ever seen before. By March of 2018, he became the first person in history to get the world record in every main category for both GTA 3 and GTA Vice City at the exact same time. Anti was easily the most dominant player that these games had ever seen, and only continued this streak by setting other records in GTA San Andreas as well. On the surface, it just seemed like no one would be able to beat his times. However, with being as dominant as he was, there were some players who found it hard to believe that he could be this good at setting record times. While it's sometimes common for other runners to call out a top runner's times for cheating without any proof, these runners actually found something that seemed strange about Anti's runs. Whenever Anti hopped into a vehicle in Vice City and started driving, a gust of smoke could be seen coming out of the back of his bike or car. This happens normally while doing a burnout, but there would be no reason for Anti to be doing this every time he accelerated. This smoke wasn't found in any other player's runs, and people couldn't figure out why this was happening, but that wasn't the only problem people discovered either. Players also realized that it seemed like Anti's cars were able to perform maneuvers and turns that seemed impossible. While at the time this evidence was circumstantial at best, players started investigating his runs to see how these anomalies could be done, and they came to one conclusion. Rock24, another runner in the community, discovered that the only way to explain the smoke appearing, as well as his car having better handling, was that Anti had been modifying his game files to make the handling better and acceleration of vehicles faster than normal. Once this evidence had been gathered, Anti was given the chance by moderators to prove himself innocent, but refused to do so. Instead, he decided to come clean in a paste bin posted on August 8th of 2018, which read, "For basically the entirety of 2018, I felt very burnt out on Vice City. I wanted to keep playing because I've been worried about disappointing people. I suppose this post will disappoint people like I never could have with just not playing the game." January 2018, I began experimenting with certain files in the game. I thought that if I gave myself the ability to just give myself free PBs again, it would make my mindset better and I could be happy playing and streaming the game again. I have done this with all my Vice City runs from then until now. The affected runs are listed below. He goes on to list all of his world record runs, as well as give what seemed to be a sincere apology to the community. Despite him admitting to cheating though, this post managed to gain him some sympathy from the community, but was ultimately banned from submitting runs for 1 year. But while he was gaining sympathy from some, not everyone was as convinced with his post. Despite claiming that he had only started cheating in January of 2018, people went back to look at his runs from before then to see if there were any anomalies, and sure enough, some of his old world records from 2017 also featured cheated runs using edited game files. They had also discovered that on top of his vehicles being faster and having better handling, He had also edited the fire rate of his weapons so they shot faster than normal speed. So not only did he lie about when he started cheating in Vice City, but he was also found to have been cheating in GTA 3 and GTA San Andreas as well, and in more ways than one. Once again, the moderators put together an investigation into all of Anti's cheated runs, and gave him the chance to come clean, but never did. So, with all of this new evidence coming to light, Anti was instead permanently banned from GTA speedrunning. However, it does seem like he has changed his ways and was able to return to GTA speedrunning many years later. And while he has set some respectable times even now, he will never be the runner the community once thought he was. Flying was a very well-known runner in the GTA San Andreas community for a long time leading up to 2017. Prior to running, he was actually quite good at making what are known as TAS speedruns for the game. A TAS, or tool-assisted speedrun, are runs that use software to go frame by frame making inputs to create theoretically perfect speedruns. In fact, Flying was so reputable that his tool-assisted speedruns were used as evidence against Anti just a few months earlier. But while he had spent most of his time on tassing, he obviously knew a lot about the game from doing them, so he would even attempt to run the game himself. And in February of 2017, he would shock the community by getting a world record of 4 hours, 1 minute, and 13 seconds, beating the previous record holder by nearly 20 minutes. Originally, no one thought much of this run. They just assumed that Flying had become leagues above every other runner due to his knowledge of the game. And so, his run would stay the world record for over 5 months. However, KZ Fru, a streamer and another well-known player in the community, wasn't convinced with Flying's newfound skill. KZ Fru would go on to upload a video detailing proof that Flying had cheated in his runs. And looking at it now, it makes it seem pretty obvious. For one, there was a very clear example of splicing that most people hadn't caught at the time. After saving his game, you can clearly see for 3 frames that CJ is spawned in at one position but teleports to another in the next frame. Not only that, but his gameplay just seemed uncharacteristic for someone who is actually playing the game. In this clip, Flying seems to snap onto the targets with perfect accuracy that he's meant to be shooting at. But just a few seconds later, his aim all of a sudden becomes less snappy and more akin to a regular person playing. This had confirmed to the community that Flying had not only spliced his run, but he was also using scripts from his TAS runs to play for him. Another runner had even pointed out that in some of his other runs, his regular times even beat his TAS in some segments. With not only this mountain of evidence and also the widespread news that had garnered from Casey's run reaching millions of views, the community had no other choice but to ban Flying from ever running GTA San Andreas ever again. In early 2022, a runner named Fix was starting to set competitive speedrun times in GTA Online. Most of his focus was set on the Cayo Perico heist, which had started to gain a lot of competition. In May of 2022, Fix had managed to get a 1901 in the Cayo Perico solo category, and then just a few weeks later, beat his own time with an 1841. Over the next 6 months, he wouldn't manage to PB again in the solo category, but he would go on to secure a world record in the co-op category for Cayo Perico, alongside other top runners in the category like Bitsao, Send, and Mori. But months after setting his solo personal best, runners noticed that there were some major issues with his run. Right off the bat, people found it weird that his timer had been added with video software after the run. This isn't necessarily against the rules, but it is common practice for someone who is attempting to splice their runs, and that is exactly what Fix had done. And in hindsight, this was arguably the most blatant example of splicing that the GTA community had ever seen. For example, Fix's loading times seem to be much faster than any other runner. Usually the cutscene to Cayo Perico takes about 4 seconds to load in, but Fix's game loads it in less than 1. Not only that, but he also goes from having an orange marker for his business color to now being green when he spawns in on the island, which is a clear example of splicing. Also, note that at 5 minutes, the pause menu clearly reads that Fix has $17 million in the bank and $11 million in cash, as this will be important later. Around the 5-minute mark, he ends a mission and his phone clearly reads that it is Tuesday, but 20 seconds later, it instead reads Sunday. Sometime later, he is clearly entering his Kosaka while it looks to be about noon at the time. But when he leaves just a bit later, the in-game time has shifted forward about 6 hours and is now dusk. And at the 8-minute mark, like we had talked about with his money, he now has $11 million in the bank and $14 million in cash, despite not spending or gaining any money during this run. There are a few more examples of splicing in this run, but I think you get the idea. All in all, the splicing in this run was blatant enough that it's hard to see how it was verified in the first place. But nevertheless, when the evidence had come out, Fix was immediately banned from speedrun.com and has yet to submit another run ever since. We truly never know who is cheating and who isn't until they are eventually caught. And while I like to think that instances like these won't happen again in the future, it's almost certain that they will. But either way, I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, feel free to subscribe and leave a like. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.